disappearance of a little girl from North Carolina in the year 2000. She has never been recovered, but there have been developments in her case in just the past few weeks, 24 years after her disappearance. This video was requested by a viewer of the channel, Aaron Kent 3212. This one's for you. Asha Degree went missing at the age of 9 from Shelby, North Carolina. In the early morning hours of February 14th, 2000, for reasons unknown, she packed her book bag, left her family home north of the city, and began walking along nearby North Carolina Highway 18, despite heavy rain and wind. Several passing motorists saw her when one turned around at a point 1.3 miles from her home and began to approach her. She left the roadside and ran into a wooded area. In the morning, her parents discovered her missing from her bedroom. She has not been seen since. An intensive search that began that day led to the location of some of her personal effects near where she was last seen. A year and a half later, her book bag, still packed, was unearthed from a construction site along Highway 18 north of Shelby in Morganton. At the point where she ran into the woods, a billboard now stands, appealing for help finding her. Her family hosts an annual walk from their home to the billboard to draw attention to the case. While the circumstances of Degree's disappearance at first seemed to suggest she was running away from home, investigators could not find a clear reason as to why she might have done so. She was also younger than most children who choose to run away. Years after her disappearance, it was concluded by authorities that Degree had been abducted after she left home. The case has drawn national media attention. In 2015, the Federal Bureau of Investigation joined state and county authorities in a reopened investigation, offering a reward for information that could help solve the case. Harold and Akia Degree married on Valentine's Day in 1988. Their son, O'Brien, was born a year later. Asha was born in 1990. The Degrees raised both children in their house on Oakcrest Drive in a residential subdivision amidst a generally rural area north of Shelby, North Carolina, on the western edge of the Charlotte metropolitan area. Both worked regular jobs nearby. Harold was a dock loader and Akia worked for Kauai American Manufacturing, building pianos. The children let themselves in after school, where their parents expected that they would either be doing their homework or finished with it by the time they returned. They made sure their children were insulated from outside influences and had a life centered around their extended family, church, and school. Degrees did not have a computer in the house. Every time you turned on the TV, there was some pedophile who had lured somebody's child away via the internet, IKEA recalled in 2013. IKEA and Asha handled this well. She was a cautious, shy, and content, mostly to stay within the limits her parents set. She was scared to death of dogs, she recalled years later. I never thought she would go out of the house. Asha was in 4th grade at nearby Falston Elementary School, going into a 3-day weekend on the 2nd week of February 2000. The Cleveland County schools were closed on Friday, February 11th. While the Degrees still had to work, the children spent the day at their aunt's house in the same neighborhood from which they went to their youth basketball practices at their school. The following day, Aisha's basketball team, on which she was a star point guard, lost its first game of the season. Asha had fouled out. Her parents recalled that she was somewhat upset about this, crying along with her teammates afterwards, but seemed to have gotten over it and watched her brother's game later that day. Excuse me, guys. On February 13th, a Sunday, the children went to church from a relative's house and then returned home. Around 8 p.m. that night, both children went to bed in the room they shared. Almost an hour later, the power went out in the neighborhood after a nearby car accident. The power came back on at 12:30 a.m., at which time Harold checked on his children and saw both Asha and O'Brien asleep in their beds. He checked again shortly before he went to bed at 2:30 a.m. on Valentine's Day, and again saw them both in their own beds. Shortly afterwards, O'Brien, then age 10, recalls hearing Aisha's bed squeak. He did not further rouse himself, as he assumed she was merely changing positions in her sleep. Apparently, around this time, Asha got out of bed, taking a book bag she had previously packed with several sets of clothes and personal items, and left the house. Between 3:45 and 4:15 a.m., a truck driver and a motorist saw her walking along Highway 18, wearing a long-sleeved white t-shirt and white pants, just north of its junction with Highway 180. They reported this to the police after seeing a TV report about her disappearance. The motorist said that he turned his car around because he thought it was strange such a small child would be out by herself at that hour. He circled 3 times and saw Degree run into the woods by the roadside and disappear. It was a rainy night, and the witness said there was a storm raging when he saw her. County Sheriff Dan Crawford said, "We're pretty sure it was her because the descriptions they gave are consistent with what we know she was wearing." He added that they also saw her at the same place, heading the same direction. Akia woke at 5:45 a.m. to get the children ready for school that morning. sister-in-law said Asha was not there. That's when I went into panic mode. I heard a car next door. I put shoes on and ran outside. Akia called her mother, who told her to call the police. By 6:40 a.m., the police officers had arrived on the scene. Police dogs called to the scene could not pick up Asha's scent. Akia went through the neighborhood calling Asha's name, which she said had awakened everyone by 7 a.m. Friends, family, and neighbors canceled their plans for the day to assist police in searching the vicinity, while the pastor of their church, along with other area clergymen, came to the Degrees' home to support them. By day's end, all that had been found was a mitten, which Akia Degree said did not belong to her daughter, noting that no winter clothing had been taken from the house. Local news coverage prompted the two drivers who had seen Asha walking along the road early that morning, including the one whose attempt to approach her apparently prompted Asha to flee into the woods, to report the sightings to police. On February 15th, candy wrappers were found in a shed at a nearby business along the highway, near where Asha had been seen running into the woods. Along with them were a pencil, a green marker, and a yellow hair bow that were identified as belonging to her. Also found was a photograph of a black girl around Asha's age who has yet to be identified. It was the only trace of her found during the initial search. On February 16th, Akia realized that Asha's bedroom was missing her favorite clothing, including a pair of blue jeans with a red stripe. A week later, the search was called off. After 9,000 man-hours had been invested in a search of the 2 to 3 mile radius of where she had last been seen. Flyers had been posted all over the area, and 300 leads had been submitted that ranged from possible sightings to tips about abandoned houses and wells where Asha might have ended up. We have never really had that first good, substantial lead, said County Sheriff Dan Crawford at a news conference. He urged the media to keep the story alive. At the news conference on February 22nd, 2000, Crawford said he was going to long range with the search for Asha. Both the FBI and North Carolina's State Bureau of Investigation got involved and put her on their respective databases of missing children. While the agencies were done searching in the area of her home en route, we're following everything, Crawford insisted. From Akia's account of what Asha had taken with her, investigators believed she had planned and prepared for this departure over the several days preceding her disappearance. She's not your typical runaway, observed SBI agent Bart Burpo. Another expert, Ben Ermini, of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, noted that most children who run away are at least 12 years of age. An FBI agent also pointed to the lack of an issue she might have been running away from, such as a dysfunctional family or poor academic performance. Still, investigators believed that she was most likely believed that the most likely explanation for her departure, but that for some reason she either got off track or was abducted. The media attention went national. A month after Aisha's disappearance, the Degree family appeared on the Montel Williams show to call attention to the case. America's Most Wanted and the Oprah Winfrey Show also devoted segments to it. In March of 2000, police erected a full-size color billboard featuring Aisha's image and identifying information along Highway 18 near where Aisha was last seen. In May of 2001, stock car racing driver Travis Kittleson featured an image of Degree on the hood of his car for an event in Concord, North Carolina, which was broadcast live on TNN. Kittleson said, "We've got a perfect opportunity to put Aisha's picture on our car, and maybe with any luck, we can help bring her home." On August 3rd of 2001, Aisha's book bag and other items were discovered during a construction project off Highway 18 in Burke County near Morganton, about 26 miles north of Shelby. It was wrapped in 2 black trash bags. The worker who found it said the book bag contained Aisha's name and phone number. The FBI took it to their laboratory in Quantico, Virginia, for further forensic analysis. Results from that testing have not been shared publicly. To date, it is the last evidence found in the case, up until a few weeks ago. On the 20th anniversary of Aisha's disappearance, the FBI confirmed that the book bag contained a copy of Dr. Seuss's McElligot's Pool and a t-shirt depicting the band New Kids on the Block. Neither appeared to have been her property before they were found in her bag. The book was from the library at her elementary school. Later reads have turned out to be dead ends. In 2004, acting on a tip reportedly received from an inmate at the county jail, the sheriff's office began digging at an intersection in Lawndale. The bones that were found turned out to be that of an animal. In 2005, Degree's image was featured on the work vehicles of 2 North Carolina companies, ServPro, a water cleanup and restoration service, and Republic GDS, a waste pickup service. Republic's area president, Drew Eisenhower, stated, "We are doing this for one reason and one reason only, and that is to find Aisha Degree. Then we can move forward and help other missing children as well." An age-progressed photo of Degree created by the FBI was featured on 28 vehicles for a period of 30 to 60 days. The Degrees took steps to keep Aisha's memory and the case alive in the public's mind. In 2008, they established a scholarship in her name for a deserving local student. They host an annual walk raise awareness and money to fund their search. The walk starts at their home and ends at a missing persons billboard for Asha along Highway 18, near where she was last seen. It was originally held on February 14th, but it was changed to February 7th in 2015 and February 6th in 2016, as Harold and Dakia felt it was not fair to participants to make Valentine's Day a somber occasion. Pictures of Asha, both real and those showing her as she might appear in later years, created by investigators to help the search, still decorate the Degree house. I fully expect her to walk through the door, her mother said. IKEA Degree lamented in a 2013 interview with Jet that her daughter's disappearance had not gotten as much media attention over the years as some subsequent cases of missing children because Asha was African American. Missing white children get more attention. I don't understand why, she said. I know if you ask them, they will say it's not racial. Oh, really? I'm not going to argue because I have common sense. In February of 2015, the FBI announced that FBI agents, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office investigators, and State Bureau of Investigation agents were re-examining the case and re-interviewing witnesses. They also announced a reward of up to $25,000 for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for her disappearance. The community group is offering an additional $20,000 reward. The FBI announced 15 months later in May 2016 that their reinvestigation of the case had turned up a possible new lead. They disclosed that Asha may have been seen getting into a dark green, early 1970s Lincoln Continental, or possibly a Ford Thunderbird from the same era, along Route 18, near where she was last seen later that night. It was described as having rust around the wheel wells. In September of 2017, the FBI announced that its child abduction rapid deployment team was in Cleveland County to assist in the investigation and provide on-the-ground investigative, technical, behavioral analysis, and analytical support to find out more about what happened to Asha. The team worked alongside FBI Charlotte employees, Cleveland County Sheriff's Office investigators, and North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation agents for 10 days. The agencies also meet several times a month to go over the latest on the investigation. Since September 2017, local agents and investigators have conducted approximately 300 interviews. In October of 2018, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office detectives appealed for information from the public about 2 items of interest that were found in Asha's book bag. The Dr. Seuss book, which was borrowed from the Falston Elementary School library in early 2000, and a New Kids on the Block concert t-shirt. An investigator said that the items are vital clues search warrant was executed by the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office and the FBI in relation to the disappearance of Asha Degree. A news release from the Sheriff's Office said the warrant was issued based on physical evidence in the case. No human remains were recovered, but multiple items of interest were taken from the site. I'm going to follow this up with a news article that was posted 2 days ago by the Shelby Star concerning a man named Russell Bradley Underhill, whose DNA was found on some of her items. Who was Russell Bradley Underhill, and what, if anything, did he know about the disappearance of Asha Degree? Underhill may have taken some of those answers to the grave. 20 years after his death, details are scarce on the man who has suddenly been thrust into the spotlight after search warrant affidavits allege his DNA has been found on items belonging to Asha Degree, a child missing since Valentine's Day 2000. The warrants executed last week make numerous references to Underhill alongside Roy Lee and Connie Dedman and their 3 teenage daughters, Lizzie, Sarah, and Annalie. Annalie Victoria Dedman Ramirez, who would have been 13 at the time, was also linked to Asha through genealogy data, according to the documents. For the first time since she went missing 24 years ago, investigators are publicly stating the 9-year-old was a victim of homicide and believe her body has been hidden. Asha left her house in the early morning hours of February 14th, 2000, and according to the affidavit, was last seen by drivers walking on North Carolina 18 before eyewitnesses saw her being pulled into a 1970s green Lincoln Continental, Thunderbird, or another similar vehicle. According to autopsy and investigative reports from the North Carolina Medical Examiner's Office, Underhill was a Vietnam veteran who struggled with depression, alcohol, and substance abuse, and the 54-year-old died alone in his Lincolnton apartment on or shortly after Christmas Day in 2004. Last seen on Christmas around 6 p.m. at his apartment, Underhill was found dead 2 days later, slumped over the couch in his living room in a pair of burgundy shorts. The report said police did not find evidence of homicide or unusual circumstances, but a cause of death was never determined. The report indicates he had coronary artery disease, but there was no indication of a heart attack, and states he had signs of older brain injuries. There were scars on his back that the report said a counselor attributed to his Vietnam War service. The report said Underhill had several caregivers and counselors who checked up on him because of his past history with substance abuse. It also stated that a caregiver reported that another client had threatened to kill Underhill in previous days. There is very little information to unearth about Underhill online, and law enforcement has remained tight-lipped. According to Find a Grave, Underhill was born in Connecticut on June 17, 1950. Following his death and autopsy, it says he was cremated. His brief obituary states a memorial service was held at Emmanuel Lutheran Church. According to the documents included with the search warrants, Underhill had been under the care of Roy and Connie Dedman off and on from the time Asha went missing and for several years after, and often stayed in two of the nursing care facilities they operated. The documents state that Underhill was living at their nursing care facility at the time Asha went missing, called Cleveland Healthcare, and that in 1999, documentation revealed that Connie Dedman oversaw his medication. Roy Dedman was listed as his emergency contact, and prior to his death, and after Cleveland Healthcare closed, he went and lived at Northbrook Rest Home, also owned and operated by the Dedmans, according to the affidavits. The search warrants, which were executed last Tuesday at locations in Cleveland, Mecklenburg, and Lincoln counties, and released to the public Monday morning, said that DSS employee told the investigators that Roy Dedman would often send his teenage daughter Lizzie, who was around 16 at the time, out to transport patients to and from Broughton Hospital in Morganton in a green AMC Rambler. A car matching that description was seized last Wednesday from Roy Dedman's Cherryville property. At some time in 2002, the warrant states Underhill was living at Autumn Years Retirement Center in Shelby. But on November 29, 2002, the Cleveland County Sheriff's Office received a missing person report indicating that Underhill had left the retirement home. He was seen getting into a red truck driven by a white man, and a deputy later located Underhill at Cleveland Healthcare, the affidavit states. According to the search warrant application, Roy Lee Dedman's property at 621 Cherryville Road is less than 6 minutes away from where Asha was last seen by a witness, and is en route to both Broughton Hospital and Northbrook Rest Home. Asha's book bag was found 10 minutes from the hospital. A long list of items were seized from Roy Dedman's home on Cherryville Road. Excuse me, folks. My apologies. A long list of items was seized from Roy Dedman's home on Cherryville Road, the home on Hawthorne Lane, where Connie Dedman currently lives, Ramirez's house in Charlotte, and Northbrook Rest Home in Lincoln County. Items include phones, computers, disposable cameras, notebooks, and journals. office on Ballston Road to address the rumors and speculation that had spread following the search of Dedman's Cherryville Road property. He said not only Dedman, but the 80-year-old's wife, daughters, and other family members have been interviewed and said they have no information on what happened to the little girl. Teddy reiterated that once the search warrant was made public, the connection to Dedman's property would become clear. I think there will also be some information in that search warrant that will sadly link a person to the circumstances to Asha's disappearance that is no longer living, he said. And it's very possible, not saying the person that was named in the search warrant, that had anything to do with her disappearance, because I don't know any more than you do. But it's very possible that that person who's no longer here has the answer as to what happened to Asha, and the answer may very well never be known. Heartbreaking case. I truly hope in the coming days, weeks, and months they are able to get some kind of an answer for her family. Whether or not she will ever be recovered is hard to say, as the most viable suspect is now dead. But there's always hope that they will at least get some sort of closure. This case was a sad